Hey YouTube, it's JP Dillon. Welcome to part 3 of the Pioneer CT-F1250. Today we're going to work on the reel motor and replacing the belts and pinch rollers and pretty much freshening up the transport to where we want it. This is a fairly tedious process. If you've gotten this far, good for you. If you haven't, I might go back and look at the number 2 video on disassembly and gather what you really have to do to get to this point. So, with anything, the first thing we have to do is get the motor apart, and there's 2 little Allen keys there, or actually just one on this one. One Allen key there on the hub, and then we have to get the back cover off so that everything can kind of come apart. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that, memorize the location of the pulley on the motor shaft, measure it if you have to. It's usually about 1/2 or 3/4 of a millimeter. And then we need to get the motor apart so we can see what the condition of the brushes and the commutator is. So once you get the outer shell off, which is basically pounding flat these retention tabs here, and then you can get the back cover off, and then you can get the actual motor housing out with the motor. And now you see we have 3 more tabs. Let me get a better view there. 3 more tabs that we have to pound out so that we can get this apart. And this is not fun. This is like the worst part of this job, which is why I hate it. But then once we get this apart, I'll show you what you have to do on the inside. And the wires have been rubbing on the, I don't know if you can see that, the wires have been rubbing on the housing for a while. So those need to be retrimmed and reattached. I would say heat sink, or heat shrink, but these wires are long enough that's not a big deal. But that has to get done before it goes all back together. So I'm going to whale on these locking tabs here, and then we can get the back cover off, and then I can show you what we're looking at as far as what's inside the motor. This has not been disassembled. I thought it was, because there were signs of it, but nope, it's virgin. So gotta look at that. So here we are. Now we have the 3 tabs punched back, as you can see. Now the next part of trickery here is you want to get this started, get the cover started by very carefully lifting up on that, prying up on that tab, which will get it started and taking it off. But you want to push on the shaft to finish taking everything out. Otherwise you will damage the brushes as they come out. And I'm not sure how to portray this really well. I'm going to see if I can set the phone up in such a way that you can see this happen. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. I'm using a little pick tool to get started, like this. See how it's got some room now? And now what I'm going to attempt to do is push on the shaft and remove the whole shebang. Now the magnet's going to want to pull it back in, and you don't want that. So you push it out to where you can get a good glimpse of your brushes and things. And then you want to very carefully remove the housing so that it's all together there. Okay? So now that we have this out as one piece, let's see if I can shed some light on this without the camera falling over. There we go. So this is the assembly, and all this stuff is really important in here. These little chokes, capacitors, and stuff like that. They very rarely go bad. But what you want to do is remove the rotor without damaging the brushes. And so you'll see at the bottom there's a little catch, a plastic bushing that's going to want to try to pull up on the brushes. And you have to very carefully get that out of there. And it requires a little bit of that dexterity. I'm trying to do it in such a way that you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to push this brush aside ever so slightly with the slightest amount of force possible until I can get it over that plastic gizmodroid there. And if it's not there yet, don't force it. Pull this other one back here from behind. And you have to be so careful, because if you damage these brush arms, it's game over. It's never going to work right. Alright, looks like I got one on the side here. Oh, almost Got one here on the side. Oh, what a pain. There we go. Alright, so you get, if you do it right, it comes out like that. And see, those aren't bent, they're nice and straight. That's what you want. Then we take a look at the actual commutator, and we see that it's pretty crusty and dirty. So this all needs to get cleaned and polished. We need to put some oil in the bearing, just the tiniest little bit of non-detergent oil. You can use turbine oil, you can use electric motor oil, doesn't matter. And excuse my jitters, that's just, my hand isn't as steady as it used to. These screws that you see poking out here, these are mechanical governor screws. Do not touch them, do not mess with them at all. Do not do that. If you do, you will disturb how the motor works and you will ruin things. Excuse me. Don't touch those mechanical governor screws. Our only focus here is cleaning up this commutator and making this ready to reassemble. And then we also have to deal with these incredibly fragile brushes, which you can see there's a lot of carbon buildup on there. And that's the scary part, is trying to get these cleaned up and working right. And this actually, you can see on the wear on the brushes there's quite a bit of it. So what we're going to have to do is very carefully polish and resurface them so that they work without there being too much of an issue. And you can take these screws loose and take them up to give you a little bit more leeway, but you just have to be extremely careful not to bend or damage them beyond usability. Otherwise, you won't have a functioning motor after that. So what I use is the rotary tool, the Dremel, or the fake Dremel, with a soft wire brush attachment to clean up the commutator and then clean up the brushes. But I do not clean the brushes in this thing while they're mounted in the housing. I'll take one of them out to facilitate ease of cleaning. I wish it would focus on that a little bit better. But yeah, it's not going to want to do that. But yeah, that's a dirty commutator. That will eventually cause problems, so we want to clean that shit up and make sure that's happy. So let me get that all prepared and we'll deal with that. And now that I got my rotary tool loaded, I'm going to remove the little plastic insert, washer, whatever here, spacer here. Come off. Just set that down on top of the motor housing. And then we're just going to very carefully clean this and put this on a low setting. And we're just going to go around and very carefully polish this. Lightest pressure as possible. You don't need to press hard at all. You can see already the difference between light and dark. I'm just using the lightest pressure possible because I don't want to score this. I just want to clean the carbon off. I'm just rotating as I clean it. Kind of like I did with that video on the Nakamichi control motor. Same kind of thing. And I'm just going to go around until all that nasty carbon is off of the commutator. Then we'll work on the brushes. So that's looking really good right there. Nice and shiny. Now we got to focus on doing the brushes, which always makes me a little bit nervous because this is a very delicate part and it's really easy to hurt it. Yeah, there's that. I got to put that back on there. Before I forget, let me put those two pieces. The flat washer goes against the body, which I'll show you here in just a second. So the flat washer goes there, and then the thrust washer goes on top of it like that. So it's like that. Alright, so back to this. I'm going to take this one loose. This might be glued in. Take this one loose. Put that screw down there. And I'm going to take this up and away. This is going to require a little bit of dexterity here, because it's on a post, it's on a plastic guide post. Of course, I may not be able to do that with all the wiring and stuff attached. So I may have to desolder this. So, let's see here. It should just be this one here. Yeah, the blue wire. We'll desolder the blue wire. We'll bring the terminal and the brush up and make that happy, because you can't safely clean these with it in the housing. It just doesn't work. So let me do that. Let me get it desoldered, and let me get the brush out. Alright, so I had to get a little bit creative because this was not cooperating. I unsoldered this. It has actually been some sort of tack welded to the body. I couldn't get it loose. I tried prying on it, heating it, whatever, it wouldn't get loose. So on this one, what I had to do was I spread it apart with my fingers like this, and very carefully with a rotary tool on a low speed, I just went sideways with the brushes straight through the two, lowest speed possible. It's hard to see that, but the point of it is that you don't bend them that way. They turned out good, and I don't know if you can see that on camera, but they're nice and shiny now versus black and cloudy, and I flattened them out a little bit too. So this is not an easy thing. Like, this is not a walk in the park type thing, and I wish I could have shown it better, but trying to get the rotary tool in there with the camera was causing me to knock the camera over, and then I didn't have a clear line of sight to be able to do it, and that would have been bad, because if I had made a mistake, I would have trashed this motor, and then we'd have to get another motor, which is exceedingly difficult. But yes, if you watch my video on doing the Nakamichi control motor, it's very similar. You're just cleaning up the commutator and the brushes so that everything's happy. And so now what I have to do is oil it, get it back together, and then we can focus on getting the motor back together and the rest of the transport done. This is really the ugly part of these Pioneers, is these real motors that fail. The rest of this stuff back here with, like, you know, the idlers, the clutches and stuff like that, you can do that. It's a pain, but you can do it. But the motor part, which you didn't see 10 years ago, this didn't become as much of a problem until in the last couple of years. But yeah, so, and then we'll have to fix the wiring, obviously, that's all chooched up, and then reassemble. And I usually use bits of solder to hold the motor housing together rather than trying to wail on the metal housing to bend the tabs back in place. But that's just me. So let me get some lubricant, and then we can start putting this motor back together. Okay, so what I want to focus on now is getting the motor back together. And so the first thing you want to do is get a little tiny bit of oil down in that bearing there. And you can use a syringe, you can use something else. I think even before that, I'm going to put the little screw back in that holds the brush in place. That would be important, wouldn't it? Because then we have to wrestle the, we have to wrestle the rotor back in here, which isn't going to be fun, but I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of oil here. And we're going to get that down in there. And the excess, I need to find my Q-tips here, or I'll just, better yet, put a little dab of paper towel on the end here and just dab it up. Get the excess out. Do that in a pinch if you're without a Q-tip. And then our nice freshly cleaned rotor. We have to kind of do the same thing that we did to get it out, which is move one of these brushes back. And I'm going to come in here at an angle. Hard to see that. I'm trying to show you getting around those brushes without bending them too much. Just wiggle and go really slow. And make sure you're in there. Make sure the brushes are properly contacting the commutator. Like that. See them on each side there. That bearing turns nice and smooth with some fresh oil in it, so that's really good. And then we'll put a little dab of oil on the top shaft here. And then we have to work on pressing this back together with the motor housing, which is this guy. So line up your tab and put your finger over the opening there as a guide, because otherwise it's going to want to rip the rotor from your hand and tear the brushes. So I'm guiding this in with my finger on it, pushing it back in here, and then we got to fight it a little to get it aligned. Alright, and then just check and see that you have free turning rotor, which it appears we do, which is good. Make sure we have just a little tiny bit of end play, so that's going to work. So if you like the way that feels, I'm going to set it on my little thingamajiggas here. And I'm going to solder it in place. I warmed the soldering iron up, forgot to do that after I turned it off for the other thing. But just want to make sure that this is properly seated and that we're not binding. If you're capable of grabbing it, rotating the shaft a bit to free up the end play, and we got some better spin down, so I'm a little more comfortable with that. And you want to press down and make sure that's fully seated. And we're going to solder the case together here, right where the tabs were. Push this down. Yeah, this ain't gonna be easy to do with one hand and the camera in the way. So yeah, I'm gonna need let me go grab my soldering gun and get this soldered up here. I need to take it over to another station, so another workbench. Alright, so I took it over and soldered the bits together, as you can see there. And I also fixed the fraying on the wire there, although that could use to be cleaned up a little bit, that's for sure. Didn't quite get that one right. And twist the wires together tight enough. Give it a little tug there to make sure connection's good, and it is. So there's the motor reassembled. It turns really smooth, has a decent spin down time. So now we need to get it back into the housing. which is this guy, and there's a little rubber grommet that goes in there. And I gotta nestle this inside of here. Get that all happy. Then get the top part in place. This is where gravity might help you. Get this all lined up right anyway. And yeah, this is going to need a little bit of tapping. I really wish that this camera would focus properly. I'm going to go get my vise and squeeze this bit together. You could probably use channel locks too, but I have a vise which has got a lot more control. And then once I get this squeezed back down, we'll do the same thing and we'll solder it in place just like the other one. And then it'll be ready to go back together. Alright, so I got my motor soldered back together. We need to put the pulley back on. That's about right. 3/4 of a mil, something like that. The Allen key I'm using is like a 1.25 or 1.26 millimeters, something weird. But you can see that has a nice spin down. Takes a while to stop. And the real test is putting it on a variable power supply and seeing if you have any dead spots while you apply resistance to it, or excuse me, a voltage to it. So we might do that just to make sure that it's happy, because I don't want to waste all this time and then I'll find out that it's no bueno and I have to go back inside of it again, which is going to be easier this time, but I'd rather not have to if I don't need to. I like that bearing though. The bearing's happy. So let me find some alligator test leads and my variable power supply, and we'll see how well it does. Alright, so I got my motor hooked up to my battery test eliminator thing, which is basically a 6 or 12 volt variable supply. I'm going to turn the voltage up to about 3.5, 4 volts. You see that the motor starts turning very slowly. No dead spots. I can stop it and it'll restart with just ease. Okay, so we've got a dead spot there, but that's only like 1.5 volts. 1.75, it comes right back. So apparently the minimum it likes is 1.75 volts, which is, I think the circuit uses 3.5 volts and 6 volts, so we should be good. Let's crank it up a little bit. Let's go to 3.5 volts. And yeah, there's no dead spots in that. That's great. So that motor is working exactly as it should. Pretty quiet too. And we can go as high as 6 volts. There's 6 volts there. Yeah, that's perfect. That thing's working great. So we'll turn that off. Motor comes to a nice stop. Nice spin down time. So that's great. So that's doing the motor. Now we need to do the rest of it. So, yep, this is going to be a teaser video. And in the next part we'll work on getting the pinch rollers and other stuff replaced. But I have some other repairs I need to tackle first. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. That was pretty much the really hard part of this repair, is getting that silly motor to work right. And the rest of it's just really tedious. Not bad, just tedious. Anyways, thanks for watching. More stuff to come.